Right, welcome to PsychOut with myself, an actual human on the actual internet answering actual questions. My name is Alex. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist, and that's why I'm here. Thomas, why are you here?
I like learning and dolphins.
Fuck yeah, dolphins are wonderful when they aren't trying to rape or murder you.
Yep,
I would
I'm a
really,
bottle. I'm a bottlenose man myself.
I hope that we learn how to talk to them someday.
Yes,
Hey,
please.
there are people actively working on it, so
Yes,
go do science.
please.
Yes. Uh, and this is very unfortunate. Once we are able to talk to the dolphins, people are going to have to understand what we're talking about today because I am positive that the dolphins are going to be fucking pissed at us,
Yeah,
and we're gonna have to
yeah.
learn how to cope,
We are.
not become defensive
It'll
about the
be.
dolphin.
It'll be the great dolphin and human war of 2027.
That's soon.
No, they'll
37?
love us. We'll get along.
Oh,
It'll
okay,
be like
cool.
Big Happy Land.
And then we can talk to the orca and be like, "Hey,
Yeah,
please
yeah,
don't ram our ships. We're
yeah.
sorry."
Quit getting angry. So,
So, yeah, today we're going to be talking about coping and coping strategies. What's the difference between a coping strategy, a coping mechanism, and a defensive mechanism? Thomas, when you're stressed, what are your coping mechanisms?
oh, well,
Oh, well, what's your coping strategy, I guess?
my coping strategy. Okay,
Yes.
so do we want to just do it for stress or depression or what?
Yes.
Okay. Let's since I don't have depression anymore,
Mm-hmm.
let's stick with the stress and anxiety because I still do feel that bodily a bit,
Uh-huh.
and I have some restlessness. So my coping strategies for that are, obviously trying to get back into exercise if I can force myself because I'm a lazy ass. Um, things like introspection so that I can realize what is going on to me, what the feelings are happening, understanding that there are ways to reframe and use coping mechanisms. I don't know all the names of the coping mechanisms yet of the different types. I need to
Totally.
learn. But and I think that's what everybody should do is,
I am
learn the
I
different.
am here for you. This is the very beginning. I said I am here for you. This is the
Oh,
beginning, and that's why we're going to be talking about what we're talking about. But okay, so everybody, coping strategies. What am they? So coping strategies are conscious goal directed efforts to manage stressors. So these are things that you can use when life is stressing you. There are actually coping strategies are used for when life stressors get to you. If you have a bad day at work, if you are they so coping strategies are problem focused. They are about active coping and planning. You're trying to figure out how to overcome something big happened to you in your life, and now you have to figure out how to move forward through that. Hello,
Hello.
Casey.
Hey, I'm not
Welcome.
going to be available for too long, but I at least want to give you some moral support while
Thank
this is
you.
all going down.
I very much appreciate that. I don't feel alone anymore.
No.
All right, so I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Thomas. What are some coping strategies that you have? So, like, coping strategies are for day to day stressors, things that are actively going on in your life right
Yeah. Can I pull the Shia LaBeouf and say just do it?
now. Problem focus. We're just going to do it. Do the thing that's
Do
stressing me
it.
out so that I stop stressing about it. Absolutely. It's not a stressor if it's all
Yeah, if
done.
it's something that I need to do right now, then I'll do it right now. If I can't do anything about it right now, then I'm going to do whatever else I need to do right now.
That is way better than avoidant coping, where you're just like, I'd rather do anything else but what I'm doing right now. Everything is better than whatever the fuck that is.
The secret is that is one of my coping strategies.
That's most people's coping strategies.
Just to
And so,
avoid.
yes, and this is great segue into coping mechanisms. These two words are used interchangeably most of the time, but when we are specifically talking about coping mechanisms, we're talking more about like the unconscious stressors. These are the things that it's like your habitual reaction to negative outcomes. So if a person gets stressed and then they go and they avoid other people, they avoid talking, they start isolating, these are all coping mechanisms. You smoke weed because you feel bad. Go and drink because you feel bad. This started out as a thing that you did on purpose, but it has become a habit. And now you don't realize that this is actually how you're coping.
I'm feeling very attacked right now.
I'm very sorry. How are you going to cope with that?
I'm gonna stick with it. Stick with you.
Wow, that's so positive. Yes.
I'm
So,
trying.
some good. So, I mean, there's maladaptive and adaptive coping mechanisms. So, some maladaptive ones, like rumination, substance use, behavioral disengagement. But then there's the adaptive ones, like talking to your friends, having a good sense of humor, but not relying it on too heavily, and being able to be serious when you have to be serious, but be funny and having a sense of levity when shit does hit the fan. And then there are defense mechanisms. This is to protect you. So the unconscious psychological operations that protect an individual from anxiety and the awareness of internal and external dangers or stressors. So when people say, oh, you're just huffing copium, really they are talking about defense mechanisms. They're talking about a person being like, no, that can't be the case. It would make me too sad. And just like outright denial. So humor, sublimation, suppression, repression, displacement of like rejection of the bad stimulus. I didn't lose 150 times in this game. No, you cheated. Immature responses like projection, denial, acting out, screaming at a person. Defensive mechanism. Go away, get out of here, stop making me feel bad.
Are we, because that's where I'm curious side of it, but I don't know if you want to go into that yet. You want to focus more on just the personal, if it's an external stressor, like I have a test tomorrow, compared to I'm in a stressful conversation with someone and there's two people now that are potentially coping and trying to manage their feelings. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you want to dive into like an interpersonal side. I know you're like relational therapy, that's kind of bread and butter, but just starting with the personal side of it, like, oh, I have a test tomorrow or I'm taking a test right now and I don't remember the answer. Actually, just I'm going to run with this for a second.
Okay.
Because speaking towards your, like, for an avoidant strategy, that is something that I have used and I've heard before, like, okay, just move on to the next question and it might pop into your head when you go on to another one that you'll remember the answer as you keep going.
Yes.
Yeah,
if you're sitting there, and this goes back to last week's episode when we were talking about stress, but if you're just sitting there ruminating, you have like that maladaptive, like, no, I need to answer it now. I can't do anything else. Like, I have to focus and do this one. Your brain is building up this allostatic load. You are going into a freeze response very mildly. And your neurons that are trying to get to that answer are not going to be arriving. Going to the next question and getting that off of that load and just distracting yourself with the next one and then doing a few more, chances are another one of the questions will activate that part that was being too stressed out to activate. So yes, move on to the next question, come back to it later. That being said, sometimes we move on to the next question. We move on to the rest of the test. And two things could happen. We could either be so stressed about that question that we don't stop thinking about it, even though we are doing the rest of the test. And that makes us worse on the rest of the test because now we're kind of multitasking. Or you forget about the answer, or you forget about the question by the end of the test, because your coping mechanism, your brain's coping mechanism for stress is to forget about it. So your brain is just disengages from the question entirely, and then you turn the test in and you're like, and then you get it back and you're like, wait, what do you mean I missed? Oh, I didn't answer it.
I wonder about also just if you're to that point of like instead of moving on to the next question, maybe come back. I just accept like, oh well, there's. I guess this would be more multiple choice, but even if it's a written out answer, you could do your best and just say I did my best.
Yeah.
I took a guess.
Yes. You could also do the better coping strategy in the future now that you know that this is what happens to you, which is study.
That's what I do.
Wonderful. I don't know how much you heard, but essentially, strategies are the things that you do. Coping mechanisms are the mental side of the coping strategies, so your subconscious reaction to stressors. And defensive mechanisms are your really bad reactions to stress.
I see, yeah.
Stress, embarrassment, anxiety, things like that.
Right. Those would be the worst coping mechanisms. Those would be the reactionary ones.
Yeah, where you are making jokes at incredibly inappropriate times, you're repressing your emotion, you are displacing your emotions onto other people, projecting those things,
Oh, yeah.
denying everything that's happening to you right now, or at the worst, acting out and just punching someone in the face because they made you feel stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm strong, I'm not dumb.
Right. That's every bully ever.
Yes, it is. So the idea of the goals of these three things, so coping strategies, the goals is to solve or adapt to stress and regulate your emotions. The goal of coping mechanisms in your brain is to reduce distress, adaptive or not. And the goal of defense mechanisms is to protect your ego from the threat of anxiety. Coping mechanisms are neutral. There is no positive or negative as far as your brain is concerned. If you are alive, then all coping mechanisms are positive, be it doing heroin or riding your bike. Yes, as Nivik says, just dance.
That's right. Go dancing. That would be a part of the exercise we talked about.
Kyle, I do like where you're going with this, asking about avoidant personality disorder. Honestly, and I've said this as much on, I think I said it on the last two episodes, is that personality disorders really are a set of coping strategies. Like your brain takes these strategies that worked really well, it becomes habitual, it turns into a coping mechanism in your brain, and now we see a list of symptoms that are in line with what we would call a personality disorder, and it's just those habitual mechanisms that you've created over time that worked super well for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, personality disorders are the worst ones to try to like reverse engineer.
Absolutely.
Because they are so habitual and like dialed in, like a NPD, somebody like that came from the extremes of parenting and other things in their environment, and then eventually it is literally in their personality, right? All those coping mechanisms.
So I know that I completely forgot to record this episode, and I'm kicking myself ever since when we talked about positive psychology. But everything that we talked about in positive psychology is how to create coping strategies. Honestly, it is so good. You get in touch with your happy place. You figure out what happiness is, where it comes from, start doing a bunch of stuff that involves that kind of happiness, and now you have a very good coping strategy. You continue to engage in that positive coping strategy, and it will become habitual, and it will affect how you react in the future to stressful events. CBT does that. It helps us figure out where these things are coming from, lets us frame things differently. It doesn't talk about when it's okay to be angry. A lot of times CBT is like, oh, let's reframe it until it's a good thing, even if it's an objectively bad thing. So it does definitely have its downsides. I know that there are people that will like disagree with me on that because people use it's a modality, so lots of people use it in many different ways. So that's very true. But for like coping mechanisms, you got like developmental psychology, trauma-informed care, like really getting into like where is this strategy you're using right now? Where does that come from? Thomas, do you have any coping mechanisms that you're like, oh shit?
Yeah, there's some nature and nurture in me that I can't immediately trace all the way back to see where the beginning of it was. Okay, so I have phobias. I had serious phobias with like knives and knives touching my skin or like sharp objects touching me or whatever. The only coping thing that I can do, the only coping mechanism I have with that is to either talk to friends or have like, have like these methods of thinking in other patterns and thinking other ways, focusing on studying. There's a lot of things that I can do, but yeah, I don't know. Talking to the friends usually helps the most because it's a distraction from the OCD worrying about the phobia,
Yes,
Yeah.
and the OCD is the coping mechanism that your brain is using right now. It like become
Yes.
overly aware and overly like essentially overly sensitive to like all your senses become very heightened. Not oversensitive, like, oh, chill the fuck out. But like you are in fact incredibly sensed right now. And that works very, very well when you're being chased by an animal and you don't want to trip on a log that's in front of you. Not so good when you're like, oh, if I turn away from this thing, everything's fine, and your brain's like, no, it's not, it's still there.
I mean, I'm literally sitting here clicking my tongue back and forth in my mouth, counting the patterns of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll do it back the other way, and then I'll tap my fingers on the desk in those patterns. Drives me crazy.
Yeah, reasonable. And because your brain does that, this is how we get compounding rituals in OCD. Or it's like,
Yes.
oh, if I mess up here, then I have to go do these 2 things or this one over here.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. Yep.
It's all in an effort to decompress. And your brain is like, this
That's right.
works perfectly.
Yeah,
And
exactly
then
right.
you say out loud, no, it doesn't. And your brain's like, la, la, la. Just covers its
I try not to do the la la la. I try to really pay attention and sit with it. But I know it's hard to do that.
No, it's incredibly difficult to do it. So this is where it's like mechanisms are the habits that we've created all the way up to personality disorders, OCD, generalized anxiety disorder. Really the best way to adjust coping mechanisms for what we know right now, if you don't want to do drugs about this, is planning, seeking support, and mindfulness. So planning, you know that something's coming up. You know how much time you have to do that thing. And then you create a list of things that you have to do over the next few days to do that. And you're like, oh, how am I going to get all of this stuff done? You make a bigger list with smaller things so it feels manageable now. Because if it feels unmanageable, it will never get done. And your brain, because it likes shortcuts, will resort to your coping mechanisms. Drink more about this because we're really stressed out. Let's go scream at our friends in a very aggressive way and take it out on them. And then we will procrastinate until the very end, and then we'll spend 14 hours up at night typing this paper out. It's worked in the past. Why wouldn't it work in the future? So
True that.
You know yourself, and so you create a very small to-do list for each day leading up to it. Tasks that feel really accomplishable. In fact, writing down tasks that you're like, why the fuck am I even writing this down? Get up and breathe? What is this? Of course I'm gonna do that. But now once you've started to do things, you're like, oh, I'm already on the list. I guess I'll do the next thing that I have to do. I have to write 1 paragraph. Oh, but writing feels anxious. Okay, I just have to do an outline. So we start with the outline, but we just start with one section of it. Smaller and smaller things make things feel more and more manageable. If that doesn't work, you can seek support.
Speaking of all these things,
friends. What's up, Casey?
I was just going to say, speaking of all this, I do have homework I have to do, so I'm going to try to watch later. Okay, well, you guys have a wonderful show, and I'll listen in later. Love, love, love.
Love, bye.
Bye. So, if planning ahead doesn't work for you, you're not alone. Go figure. We're on this planet with billions of other people. At least one of them is willing to help you.
That's a fact.
And then you have your negative coping mechanism, which might kick in with anxiety. Like, oh, but then I have to reach out to people. I feel more comfortable in procrastinating than I do with talking to other people, because talking to other people there's this vulnerability to it of being like, I can't do this alone. I'm supposed to be the sigma male here, the lone wolf that can do anything by himself, and I'm asking peasants for help.
Yes.
Got to get over that ego right there. You got to ask other people for help. We didn't grow up like we have existed this long on this planet. You are currently alive right now, and you did not do that alone. There are lots of things that
Yes.
you did alone, but not everything.
I agree.
And then mindfulness. Where was I? Just saw this in the chat a minute ago. Fun mindfulness activities of playing music, working out, having sex, doing things that are in the here and now, painting, cooking. All of this stuff requires your focus and attention. Anything that is physically active that if you stop paying attention to the activity that you're doing, bad things will happen. That's the activity that will help you find mindfulness the quickest. And then once you've achieved that in that kind of activity, you can do meditation after that. Jumping right into meditation, you already have the anxiety. So it's entirely possible that you can get overworked, that you're like, I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing this right. And that's what you get for 10 minutes. So for those of you who have meditated before and it works great for you, continue doing that. If you have not meditated, but you feel like you are grounded, then try meditation. And if you haven't tried meditation and it sounds awful and you've never felt grounded, I would highly recommend doing some kind of like physical activity that you have to engage in. Build that sense of groundedness.
Yes, that is one of the most important things to build as a person. And metacognizance is involved in mindfulness. It's one of the first things you start doing.
Wait, Thomas, metacognizance? What is that?
What is that? It's it's being able to notice, not only notice, but be completely aware of your thoughts and feelings and emotions and all that, or your even body and surroundings as you're doing them. So you're literally, as you are doing the thoughts and feelings, you're observing them, you're realizing where they come, you're trying to realize where they come from, you're being more mindful about it directly, you're being metacognizant. So that's the awareness part of mindfulness. But then there's, the non-judgment part where you're just observing not the past or the future, and no judgment of yourself, but just a almost objective, very calm way of looking at your thoughts and feelings as they happen.
Yeah, there's a strategy that a lot of therapists use. I love this strategy. We just count down from, it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's like, name 5 things that you see in the room around you. Name 4 sounds that you can hear right now.
Fan, 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 fan. That's all I can hear in my room. Maybe some birds chirping outside?
There you go.
Nothing else.
Are you sure?
It's pretty quiet. I'm trying, let me think. Birds hearing up chirp inside. Fan. Oh, I can hear my dryer. I forgot that was going. Okay.
Hey, I can hear
trying
something.
to see if you just...
I can hear something.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if...
I can hear something in your room right now.
It's probably the fan.
Nope.
Me.
There you go. I love it when people are like,
yeah, that is
4 things that I can hear. Here. Oh, I guess I can hear myself talking right now. Yeah. You can hear yourself breathing all the time.
If you get really quiet, you can hear your heartbeat.
Yeah. 3 things that you can feel.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel my feet on the ground. I can feel my butt in my chair.
And
I can feel the air going into my lungs when I take a deep breath.
Yeah, but I'm questioning all of it.
Yeah, well, and we're not questioning any of it right now. We're just we're just labeling them and moving on to the next one.
Just labeling.
Yep.
Moving on.
Exactly. Then there is taste, which is a weird one. It's like, what was the last thing that you're like, oh, I can't really taste anything right now except for because I haven't had any food. And then generally I'm like, okay, what was the last thing that you had to eat? Like, imagine that.
The last thing I had to eat that I couldn't taste?
That you could taste.
That I could taste. Milkshake last night.
All right. Was it good?
It was good. It was very good.
What kind of good?
Vanilla milkshake.
Nice.
Ooh, it was vanilla-y and milkshakey and smooth and delicious and sugary.
Yeah, you got that sweet and that cold and that warm flavor. Cold and warm with vanilla.
All in delicious.
And that creates grounding, becoming very aware of all of your senses.
Mhm.
And then now that you're grounded back into the moment, it becomes a lot easier to do everything else that you needed to do. If you're too overwhelmed, it just spirals. Everybody knows that. We have all been there. You get too overwhelmed, and now you can't do anything. Lay in bed and panic. Not
I've been
fun.
there.
Yeah, not fun, not nice.
I've been there a lot
Same.
in the past. Horrible. Glad I don't have to deal with that anymore.
Well, right now.
Cross my fingers.
Yeah,
No more
cross my
panic
fingers
attacks.
and hope
Yet.
that doesn't happen later
Yet.
today.
No panic attacks yet. That is the biggest. Yet is the biggest word there. We'll we'll hope. It used to be every fucking day.
There you go. See, and that's the thing. It like if it is every day, if that's how it feels all the time, then somebody walking up to you and just being like, "Oh, it could be different," makes no sense at all. Zero. You're like, I'm sorry, but last time I checked, the last 5 years have been this way. Why would it ever change? And
Exactly.
yeah, it makes sense. So that's why,
Exactly.
like, changing coping mechanisms takes a very, very long time. If you don't do psychedelic psychotherapy. Because psychedelic psychotherapy can make that stuff happen very quickly. Increases neuroplasticity by tenfold, and then you can build any strategy after that. So you just write down the list of things that you would like to have your coping strategies be, and how you would like to be responding to things generally. And then you just do the hallucinogen. The next day you go to therapy, integrate those experiences, and then you start doing the action plan that you created.
Do you know how much I would love for you to give me psilocybin treatment and then
Yeah.
just analyze me?
Do you know how much I would do you know how much I would love if psilocybin treatment was legal and was like a thing that I was allowed to do in California? It was going to be legal last year, but then Newsom shot it down. He said that he wanted the wording in the legislation for it, the bill that would make psilocybin psychotherapy legal, he wanted that to be so solid that it could be done federally right after California made it legal. So the therapeutic world had a collective sigh of like, yeah, I guess, sure. Many of my colleagues were like, or we could just do it now and then show proof of concept will make it easier in the future. Also works.
Yeah, then we'll have the evidence.
Yes, it'd be very nice. I would like to go to the chat for a second. I want to ask everyone if anybody would like to talk about coping mechanisms, coping strategies, defensive mechanisms. Feel free to raise your hand. I'd love to hear your questions, thoughts, opinions, ideas. Could talk about those for a little bit. If you have questions and don't want to jump up, feel free to write them in the chat. I would really love to hear that. If you're listening to this later, please give a like to this video. I would also really appreciate that. So would Thomas. You can't see him right now, but he's smiling and giving a thumbs up.
I am.
Go over to Twitch. You can watch us live there every week until I figure
We're
out
gonna
how to
fix
get
this problem where
until I figure out how to get us on YouTube without having errors pop up all over the place and get Thomas' camera and microphone working here.
Yeah, so we have to find some way to get rid of the echo and be on Discord and be on the streaming service.
Oh, technical issues. This stuff always happens. And I'm sitting here saying that out loud while being like, oh, I'm the only person that this has ever happened to.
Yeah.
Kyle, here we go.
Well, hello.
Well, hello and welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.
I was curious if you have seen any type of study or research regarding the use of Discord, because as we all know, Discord can be used as a coping mechanism. I would like to hear both of your thoughts.
Well, I use it as a way to make relationships and good friends, so that can be a part of my coping mechanism. Talking with Travis and Alex and Casey and Scott and Don. I mean, that's a huge part of it for me. So, that's where I get most of my support from, therapeutically, emotionally, all that kind of stuff. It's a huge part of my coping strategies.
Yes. So, and it goes back to if you want your coping mechanism to, or at least one of your coping mechanisms, to be talking with friends, as you should want one of them to be that. Discord makes that incredibly simple. Every Discord has a theme. It's like, oh, it's for this game, it's for this YouTube channel. So you know that you're going in there with people that already want to engage in that kind of thing. So if you have some kind of like social anxiety, it relieves that part of it. Fantastic. There are rooms that are only text. So if you're afraid of getting on voice, you can start texting people. And then you can move from texting people to getting on voice. And then you can move from being on voice to being on camera. And you can very slowly integrate that like social aspect of coping strategies into your life. Discord is a wonderful thing to exist. It can also be incredibly toxic like anything else, like just, grain of salt with everything that I say, but it is very, very helpful if used in the correct way, which most often is.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself
Exactly.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm grateful to have learned about Discord existence a year ago, actually, and to meet you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too. Grateful very much. Always good. I want to know good, kind, honest people. I don't care about their intelligence. I care about are they a good person?
Yes.
Are they seeking goodness? Are they seeking well-being? Do they care about my thoughts and feelings as I'm talking? Are they doing some of the emotional heavy lifting there so I don't have to like take care of their feelings too? Are they honest and genuine and things like that stuff matters to me the most.
Where can people find stuff like that, Thomas? Is there like a specific kind of Discord that helps people find good faith, helpful conversations?
There might be. I don't know.
Is it the Pangburn Discord that we're on right now?
I think it might be. I think it might be.
Yes. It's wonderful. Finding a place that has like helpful people that are willing to see you emotionally and intellectually where you are and accept you in that kind of way can make developing social skills it's still real life. Like we are still talking in real life. It's over the computer, but it's still real. But talking over the internet, it still makes it easier to talk in real life, like in like face-to-face kind of situations. That being said, like you can only see me from like the waist up right now, and you can't see me from the waist down, so like you're not getting the subtle non-verbal cues I'm giving you with my feet. I gotta say, beautiful, wonderful feet. My daughter painted my toenails, so they look sick as fuck.
Feet coping mechanisms.
Are kinks coping mechanisms?
Why not?
Yes. Yes,
Why
they
not?
are. Yes, they are.
And they're all awesome. All of them.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. There's some kinks out there where people are killing motherfuckers, so let's not do that.
Yeah, don't do that. If your kink involves people that did not consent to your kink, don't do that. I am kink shaming you. Stop it.
Otherwise, no kink shaming.
Yeah, otherwise no kink shaming. Like if it doesn't hurt you or the people around you in meaningfully significant ways, fine.
When I met my furry friend in college the second time, he was such a cool dude. He was so nice and everything. But, he was furry and he was sexual about it. He was not, he would say that shit. And I was like, eventually I was like, yeah, why not? And it never bothered me again after that. I'd never even thought about it. It's just a thing.
Yeah, no, it's like, people have their experiences in their life, and like I said, you can do physical things to get things out, and one of those physical things people can engage in is sexual activities. And so one of the ways to feel powerful in your life is, oh, I was afraid of this once. Now I've learned to fuck it. Like literally. I'm gonna fuck the fear away. Power was taken away from me when I was a kid, physically. So go figure. The highest reported kind of child abuse being physical abuse, and the highest reported kind of kink being BDSM. I wonder why those two things are the most reported together.
Not just a correlation, sir.
Yep. Potential causation, I would really...
Potential causation.
Yeah, because it makes some people feel ooky to study this kind of stuff, so there's not...
Well, has there been an ultra big case study? Oh, no, I agree with you.
There hasn't been an ultra big case study on it. And I would You know, if somehow someone finds this on the internet someday and wants to do that case study, I would love to help you do that. Please hit me up.
Man. Are psychologists scared of kinks too? Are they like, is it like
Yeah, no,
embarrassing to them?
there are a lot of psychologists that are like, no, sex makes me feel weird. I have a lot of stuff
Oh,
around it, so I might like project or like have countertransference with my
man.
client. Yeah, so there are therapists out there that do not want to talk about sex, and then there are sex therapists who focus on talking about sex. Sex therapy is it is not a therapist having sex with their clients. That does exist. It is not what sex therapists do. Sex therapists talk to you about sex and get to the bottom of like what your hang-ups on the whole thing is.
All right, Thomas, come on into the office and derobe.
Yes, I'm going to help you with my mouth by talking to
Yes.
you. Don't get your mind out of the gutter.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Are we distinguishing between healthy and unhealthy coping strategies? Yes. So everybody has coping mechanisms for everything that happens in their life. Some of them are very good and positive, like talking to your friends, playing music, painting, all of the things that we do throughout our life to feel better. But even those things can be unhelpful if they are purely for distraction. It is great to distract yourself from an overwhelming task so that you can decompress yourself and move forward from there. But if you cannot pull back from that strategy and you're like, oh, it's turning into procrastination now it's a negative coping skill. It has become unhealthy. If you hit a joint and then you go write a fucking book after that because that's the thing that made it so that your mental capacity you could give yourself enough room emotionally to start writing, fantastic. Is there another way to do that for you? Probably, but I would also not tell you to stop doing that one right now. Now, replace that statement with heroin? Absolutely. I'd be like, no. Not good. Many writers, many musicians have done lots of drugs. It does not mean that the drug was a positive coping skill. Just because you're successful at something does not mean that you are coping well.
Correct.
Think about how much better you could be if you didn't do that. So yeah, your brain has no idea what a negative coping skill is or a positive coping skill. All it knows is it's still alive. That's it. Brain, big fat ball in head, totally dumb. Doesn't even have its own best interest in mind.
Evolution's not built that way. It's built for pragmatic practicality.
How destructive is being self-serving and unhelpful, powerful coping mechanisms? How destructive can powerful coping mechanisms be? I take it, and then how destructive is being self-serving and unhelpful? I want to go with incredibly destructive, varying levels of very bad. If you become self-serving and unhelpful to the point of narcissism, well, you're going to self-destruct your own life. Being self-serving can be perfectly fine. You know, if you're like, oh no, guys, I need a minute I just need to hold back for a minute. That is self-serving. That's being selfish. But also, now you're not yelling at your friends. You're taking a minute. You're taking a deep breath. You come back, and now you're better. So that it's good to be that level of self-serving and selfish. You know, you got to feed yourself. You got to bathe. You should get to sleep on time. Just because your friends want you to come out, if you're exhausted, like, go to sleep. You'll be better for it. That kind of self-serving is fine. But if it comes at the detriment of others, then yes, absolutely destructive. Very unhelpful. What if therapists need therapy? We do.
They do. They do.
Yes. Yeah.
They're supposed to get it in their grad school or in their doctorate or whatever. They have to take therapy.
Yeah, you have to take therapy if you want to be a therapist. At least touch it a little bit, I guess. It would be it's bizarre to me that people who have never gone to therapy want to be therapists. It is, I personally, this is just me, I think the more that you fucked up your life and then you became a therapist by going to therapy and now your life is doing marginally better, good enough to go to school and become a therapist, get a master's degree. You are such a better therapist than somebody who has not experienced significant problems in their life.
I mean, what other field would you go in? Baseball.
Yeah.
Would you go play baseball without ever having played baseball, like in the major leagues?
No. We're gonna go into the major leagues. I know I've never picked up a bat before, but I'm probably the greatest that's ever lived.
Oh my God!
I can think of people like that. All of them are narcissists.
Those are wonderful coping skills for a personality disorder.
Okay, so
Sarcasm.
yeah. If your therapist needs therapy, can their mental problems have a bad outcome on your diagnosis and how they treat you? Yes. Yes, if your therapist is not going to therapy and they really need to, they can. So it's called countertransference, when your client brings something up to you that it becomes personal. Like, that is something that you should go to therapy for. Figure out what about your client triggered you so that you can be a better therapist moving forward and can work with stuff like that. And until then, don't work with stuff like that. You've now found your limitations. Again, we are not islands. No one person needs to be able to fix everything. So when that happens in your therapeutic process, that's when you have to take time for yourself, go to therapy, figure out what's going on there, and don't work with that kind of problem until you've resolved that.
Because a lot of psychologists think, well, I'm probably think myself out of this.
Yeah. I know all of the strategies, so I'm always aware of myself when I put my hand on the stove.
Oh, yes. Can't be wrong about your biases, your intuitions, or your misperceptions. No.
Last time I checked, cocaine was the answer for Freud and always has been the answer ever since then.
Well, you know what? Let's just cut off all the rest of psychology. Let's just stick with Freud.
Yeah.
I think that's good. That's a good stopping point.
We don't need anything before that, and like the Vedas or anything talking about trauma. We don't need anything after that.
That's right. No B.F. Skinner,
guy,
no Albert Ellis.
Yeah,
none of those guys.
Eccleston. We don't. Erickson.
Erickson.
Eccleston,
Nobody.
Doctor Who. No, we don't need anybody after that.
Nobody. Thanks, Freud.
Yes. Your best coping mechanism is to accept reality for what it is. Yeah. That can help with stress that is going on right now. You accept that is what's happening. You figure out what needs to be done about that one thing, and then you move from there. Making lists, asking other people for help. But yeah, first accepting what reality is takes a long time for some people. Some people never get there.
That's correct. Idealism.
Yep. All right. Leo is raising their hand.
Hello.
Hello and welcome to PsychOut. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. You guys were, I was waiting for a bit. You guys were talking about panic attacks, and that was immediately up my alley.
I feel you on that, brother. Feel all your pain.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with. I was actually diagnosed with an anxiety disorder when I was around a teen, but it didn't really manifest until I was an adult because the bullying I received online got so bad. I started to have intense panic attacks, and it took me years to get over all the abuse I experienced.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
well, I'm proud of you for getting over it.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I say to people is autism is one of the most hated things on the internet. Slang is used to disparage it. There's entire slurs dedicated to it. And trying to navigate in spaces. I actually wrote a whole Mastodon post about how the second certain people find out I'm autistic, they'll ignore my arguments and tone police the hell out of me. Yeah, I will say something correct, and all they'll care about is I'm too passionate. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Are you going to address my argument or not? The reason I like this server, the reason I like this server is because no one gives me special treatment. I've been in so many servers, and this is the only server I've been in where I actually feel like I'm treated as an equal, and no one tries to give me a hard time because I'm autistic.
That's because you are an equal. You are an equal.
there's a whole thing my friend and I discuss a lot. It's called benevolent ableism. And it's something that is not discussed enough, because benevolent ableism is just as bad as regular ableism. Because then it's like, oh, I'm now going to give you extra special stuff because you're autistic. I'm like, don't do that shit. I didn't ask for that.
Yeah.
I never asked for that. You made that up in your head. And this is a trait that non-autistic people are, as we say in the neurodiverse community, neurotypicals do. They think they know us. Because the media especially is so shitty when it comes to autism representation. We're either super geniuses or we have some type of intellectual disability, and no one understands how autistic people actually live.
Yeah.
Actually exist.
You are there to either feel sorry for, or you're some kind of person with superpowers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get so tired of this because I have to keep dispelling these myths, be like, no, I am not a super genius. I don't know what my intelligence level is. I don't know. I don't care enough to figure it out. I'm probably pretty average. I don't think I'm specifically unique in terms of my intelligence. I think the only thing that makes me differ from the American population is my ability to give a shit about important things. I think that's the only difference.
So what were the strategies that you kind of came up with to get yourself away from that panic disorder?
Well, I don't have a panic disorder. I have an anxiety disorder.
So the panic attacks that you were having, so you're having panic attacks with your anxiety disorder. So what were the kind of strategies that you used to get away from that?
Well, the first thing I did is I learned to stop trying to control situations where people are assholes to me, and I started to develop a more sophisticated understanding of ableism and understanding, like, it's not one of the most important things to remember is just because you're having a panic attack doesn't mean that, like, that person is necessarily egregious. And my brain, this is probably something everybody knows, when you're non-neurotypical and you're autistic or somewhere on the neurodiverse spectrum, the way you experience emotions, the way you deal with emotions is totally different than how the average person does it. I would say I have about the emotional maturity of about a teenager now. I'm not very good when it comes to emotions. I've gotten better, but I would say the biggest thing that has changed with me is my ability to, like, kind of, I don't know the technical term for it, but it's kind of like activating my frontal lobe and kind of just letting it go. Like, I'll give you a great example today. So I was a little bit late for school, and my dad gave me a hard time about it. And it's not important. It's control freak crap. And right as I was trying to go out, get in this call and then talk, he effectively scolded me over it, and I just played along, and I realized it wasn't worth getting angry at him. That's an example of me just letting it go and not trying to argue. It's not worth it. It won't make things easier. That's an example.
Yeah.
I have a lot of cases where I just want to get angry at people because I'm a very volatile person and I'm a very blunt person, and I don't have a lot of patience for people who piss me off. Yeah. It's kind of how I operate.
Well, yeah,
like
anger, and I'm just going to say, like, anger gives you the energy to be able to go into confrontations. It gives you the focus to go into confrontations. So it's like anger can be extraordinarily useful in a lot of different situations, but also unchecked anger, unregulated anger, like that's when a person can explode. And you can explode it yourself also. And like you said, you have like the emotional range of like somebody in their teen years right now. And knowing that is incredibly important. Now, like, you can have those strategies of like what we would do with adolescence and then move up from there. And that's fantastic to have.
Yeah. I have a very kind of, I guess I'll call it unbalanced personality. Most people think that I'm neurotypical until I open my mouth, as I say. Most autistic people don't look any different than the general population. Mm-hmm. And there's this weird obsession in our society with how someone looks. And then they're like, okay, well, they're these things. I'm like, no, you don't fucking know what they are. And, I pass as white cishet neurotypical. No one even suspects that I have anything. I actually have a ton of needs and wants that are not addressed in this system. I have emotional problems. I have sensory problems. Just because I'm highly verbal does not mean I don't have problems, but our society views highly verbal people as not needing help, which it pisses me the fuck off. Because I have to be on pills because of how bad my anxiety is. I don't have the luxury of just being like, oh, just play some music, bro. No, that's not how it works. You can't just make your anxiety magically go away. Anxiety doesn't necessarily go away. It just becomes easier to cope with. I cope with it by distracting myself or finding something else to do, or I tell myself, is this really worth it? My friend recently got visited by the cops, and that was a good case for me to get angry.
Yeah.
Long story short, he tried to sell something.
So I want to hear the story. I just want to address what you said about anxiety really fast, and then we can get back to that. So I'm sorry for interrupting you. We're just about to start another topic, and I was like, okay, let's address this thing first. So
Go ahead.
Last week we talked at length about anxiety and like how it functions, why it's a good thing to have anxiety. We're supposed to have it. We're supposed to feel stressed. I would highly recommend anyone go back and listen to last week's episode where we go into all of that, because our relationship with stress is very important to our body's physiological response to what stress does.
Absolutely.
So like we should be anxious about things that we are uncertain of things that we can't control. The anxiety response is there to raise your heart rate, make your hands moist, dilate your pupils and your blood vessels so that you can more readily take in the world around you. And so these are all very good things to have, unless they're activated all the time. That's no, do not be running on adrenaline at all moments. That's bad for your tummy.
Nope. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's entire research dedicated to there's extensive research about stress and what it is. Your stress gets bad enough. If you get stressed enough, it can actually as I said, there's a lot of studies on it, but basically you don't want to be stressed constantly. It will slowly kill you is the long story.
Allostatic load is no laughing matter. There are tons of things. And so like, and that's why we're having this episode of like different kind of coping strategies that people have, the difference between good ones and bad ones, like positive coping strategies, negative coping strategies, how they become coping mechanisms inside of your brain. So these are like your unconscious reactions to things, and let's get rid of defensive actions. Don't be defensive. I know it's very difficult. It's easy to say, hard to do. It requires a person becoming vulnerable and being like, I was wrong about that. Yeah. Nobody likes that.
Yep. Yeah. I have my personality type is pretty, I mean, to be honest with you, there are some cases where I'm a bit of an asshole because I don't have very developed social skills, and it's not a good combination when you have a good command of English, but you don't have good social skills or good emotional regulation, and it can make relationships with me difficult because I can be a little unpredictable for people.
Elio, the fact that you know this stuff is so impressive. Like the fact that you're willing to admit the emotional and social dysregulations and problems that you have, that's a hell of a lot, man.
Yes.
Or sorry, you know what I mean.
You can refer to that's fine. You can refer to me like that. Just as long as you don't refer to me as he, him, or a man, it's fine.
No. I try to recognize your pronouns, man, always. Or you know what I mean.
That's fine.
Yes.
No issue. The short story I was going to mention, I was going to show you an example of where it was justified for me to get a little angry. Long story short, my friend was trying to sell a computer because we needed new computer parts, and someone offered him only $5 for the computer, and obviously he's not going to take that. So we can't prove it, but allegedly that guy reported him to police for scamming, and the cops came at his door. And they tried to get into his house, and he had to evoke the fifth to get him to fuck off. And I got so irritated. I said, did you film that? Did you get their badge number? He said that they can't do that in my state. I say, well, film them then. Film that. And then take it to court. Because if you film that shit, you can get cops in trouble. I don't know why people don't film cops more. You need to film them because you don't want to play it's your word against mine. If they're not going to give their badge number, film them. If it's your property, you can do it. And I got a little angry at him because he shouldn't be treated like that. He didn't do anything wrong. And because he's poor, cops bully him. And it drives me crazy with anger because he has done nothing wrong in his life to deserve that. To be reported for scamming because he wouldn't take a $5 offer for a computer. Ridiculous.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Like, social issues are a place where anger should be. We should have reasonably, we analyze the situation, we see what's going on, and then we become morally, we feel like we always become morally justified in becoming angry about things. But like inequality, very good place to have anger. great place to have enough energy to fix something about that thing.
I would best describe my personality as vociferous. That's a pretty good description of me. As I operate I operate on my own philosophy, and I've recently stopped being a leftist and I've become a post-leftist, and many people don't understand what that means, and then I get accused of fascism, and I have to explain, no, I don't like the right. I just don't agree with the identity politics on the left. So I want to create my own philosophy that doesn't do that. That works for me. I don't want to play labels. That's kind of the point I've reached. I don't want to play labels. I want to pick what works for me. I don't want to play the package deal that the political paradigm gives me. That's just not a way I like to live. Because the left has, there's some things I do agree with the left overall more than the right, but there are some things I don't agree with on the left, and I shouldn't be obligated to pick a side. I should be able to pick my own.
Dealing with politics in terms of just like seeing like issues going down, like, oh, this is what I would like to see in society. I would like to see something over here, and just going issue by issue and not having an affiliation with one overarching thing is like it can feel overwhelming, but the more that you do it, the more it becomes less overwhelming because you're engaging in that. Alien, I'm going to take you down right now because we got about 5 minutes left. And so I think that at least is a very good coping strategy when it comes to politics. There's not a whole lot that a single individual can do about the greater standing of politics in our world, but you can talk with your friends. You can make sure that they're okay. Thomas knows all about this. Thomas hates politics. Thomas, how do you cope with politics?
Okay. So political philosophy, fine, if we're talking about the depths of that, or like political science. But when people start talking about current events and like Russia and like our economic situation, I start rolling my eyes into the back of my head. And the only reason is I just don't give a shit. I just don't. I mean, I could try to make reasons and all this stuff, but it just falls down. I'll just give a shit. But I'm still willing to engage with people who are like passionate about it. But my coping strategies with it, when I'm in the room, I don't want to tell everybody it's stupid. I don't want them to stop talking about something they love. So I'm not going to do it, you know?
Yeah.
I just listen and try to learn. That's my coping mechanism in that sense, in that case.
I would say that the listening and learning is your coping strategy, and the I don't give a shit about this is your coping mechanism.
Correct.
Like,
Yeah,
politics
correct.
turns on and you're just like, no. Melts away.
If somebody wants to talk to me about like Locke, Rousseau, or Hobbes or anything like that, that's cool. Or if we want to talk about like, the statistics in political science that drive us to these machinations and stuff. But yeah, you get it.
Yes, absolutely.
The coping mechanism is I don't give a fuck. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's not just politics, and it's not just you. And anytime that I know everyone listening right now will relate to this. You had a class that you didn't like, and when you didn't like it, you didn't pay attention. And then halfway through the semester, you started paying attention and went, nope, fuck this. Entirely overwhelmed. Do not know what's going on. I'm just going to check out entirely. Yeah. And that can be politics for a lot of people. It can be math for a lot of people. It's math for a lot of people. It's reading for a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just dissociation is one of the worst coping strategies because it self-perpetuates.
It used to do it while I went into psychosis all the time. I would disassociate, and it was the fucking craziest thing of all time, man. It's so hard to describe.
Yeah. No, it is not a helpful tool.
No.
And that is when meditation can also become bad. If you are meditating to dissociate, that's not what meditation is for.
Mm-hmm.
Dissociation can help you in a moment to like take a breath, dissociate from what's going on right now, feel your body, look inward, take a deep breath, and then come back. But if you dissociate completely from all conversations, you are just going to feel isolated. You're going to feel alone. You're going to feel overwhelmed. You'll feel like no one's there to help you because you've dissociated from it. And that's why my coping strategy for politics is like the opposite of Thomas's strategy. where I get really upset by things, and then I, do the positive coping strategy of talking with my friends about it. Just bitching, vent. It makes me feel better. Like it gets all the stuff that's inside of my head out, which makes me feel connected to people. And then when I'm looking at like actual politics, I can do something about the politics in my town. I can't do stuff on the greater, like, unless you're friends with like the governor of your state, there's not much that you're going to be able to do.
That's what I tell everybody. Your coping mechanism might be realizing that you don't have control in national and governmental levels unless you're part of like a big group that does protests and all this stuff. That's fine. But as an individual layman that's just voting, you can't really affect that in any way that, if you're in a blue state and you vote, you can vote red all you want. You could probably get 100,000 extra red votes if it's not a swing state, and it won't matter. You know what I mean? So, not saying that it shouldn't matter for people. Please go vote. Yes. I'm just different. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thomas is dissociating, as we've been talking about.
I am. But I will say, Alex, would you say this? Would you say that any way ignoring your feelings or acting like they're not there, trying to suppress them in this type of weird meditational tactic, that's unhealthy?
That's unhealthy. Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if your meditation is dissociation, that's not meditation. That's not what you're trying to do. You want to become more aware of your emotions. You want to become more aware of your thoughts and where they come from and the origin of those things. You want to be able to like sneak up on yourself breathing without actively breathing. Like if you're attempting to dissociate, like you are essentially just trying to run away from the situation. You're like, this is too overwhelming. This is too much. I'm fucking out. I'm going to check out completely.
Yeah.
That's where you get things like depersonalization, derealization disorders. I deal with those myself, and that was really in an effort to like, I'm going to go fully inside of my own mind. Nothing else exists because the world is so awful.
Would you explain derealization to people just in a real quick way, if you can?
Yes. So derealization is believing that believing and feeling that the world around you is not real. Like you're inside of a video game or you're watching a movie through somebody else's eyes. Depersonalization is feeling like you are not the person that you are. So if you if you walk around believing that you are like actually literally the center of the universe, we can go a lot into idealism here. Idealism is the coping philosophy of this coping strategy.
Yeah, it is. That's the basis.
We could do an entire episode on idealism, being selfish, what the difference between like the different kinds of selfishness are, and why idealism is not healthy. It is an unhealthy philosophy.
Oh man, is it ever? Yeah. That's why I'm trying to change the diaper of the philosophical world.
When are you doing that one?
Okay, so on the 26th, me and Don are announcing our war on extreme idealism, extreme postmodernism, and the post-truth era. Some things in postmodernism are good, some things in idealism are okay, but the extreme versions are insane, and we want to do something because nobody's doing a philosophical war, ideological war against philosophy. And I'm going to announce on stage, we're tired of this. We want problems to be solved, and we want people to stop living in their heads, and we want you to come live with us, and we're here to change it. I'm going to do my best to change it. I'm also going to look at the camera and say, and Jordan, I'm coming for you.
So you're doing this on stage on the 26th?
On stage with Travis and them,
in Detroit. Awesome. Yeah. I'm excited. Yeah. I wish I could be there, but I have no money.
Man, I would love for you to be there. I would love for you to be there so
much.
I'd
love to meet you. Issue a war proclamation against Jordan also. On a very personal level as a therapist.
Yep.
But yeah,
I'm gonna call him out.
Yeah. And he can cope harder, I guess.
Cope all he wants to.
Cope all you want. Bad coping strategies. I hope
Yeah.
we're able to help everybody that is listening right now figure out what coping strategies, mechanisms, and defensive mechanisms were. I thank you for joining all of us. I really appreciate and love all of you for being out there. And I will see you in the chat rooms and next week. Bye.
Oh yeah.